You still getting a hum?
We'll play with it later. Except for,
Rattle and hum.
Check, 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 check.
Hello.
Find it.
I see your phone case matches your suit. Was that intentional?
It was.
Nice.
I started buying the ugly color phones because they're like $400 cheaper.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You just put a case on them anyway. Who cares, right?
That's exactly what I said.
about to share.
Good morning. Good morning. I see some folks online here. I hope you can hear me okay. I think you might be
Good
muted
morning.
there. Oh, there
Yeah,
you go.
good morning. I can hear you.
Good to see you, Senator. You're looking great.
Thank you. Thank you. As a matter of fact, somehow my internet is not working, so I'm using my iPhone, using my cellular data. So it looks like it's okay. I was going to use my laptop, but that's fine.
Fantastic. All right. I think I see Fred up there.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. And I'm looking, and it's hard for me to see everybody's pictures from afar away. So if everybody can just announce themselves that you're here, that would be great.
Good morning. This is Robin Crittenden.
Hey, Robin, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Yeah, if you can make it a little bigger, that'd be great. Oh, go ahead. Who else is on the line?
My name is Daniel Hales. I was invited in to present on AI in education.
Yes, Daniel. We're very excited to hear from you. All right. Who else is on the line?
Good morning. My name is April Aldridge, and we were invited in as well from the Georgia Department of Education. I serve as the Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and Lavita Williams is here with me. I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Lavita Williams, the Computer Science Program Lead at the Georgia Department of Education. Excited to present to you all today about AI in education.
Okay, so Lavita, you're going to be the one speaking, or is it going to be April or both?
Both of us.
Oh, well, okay. Perfect. All right, great. And who else is on the line?
Good morning. This is Kristen Macerbo from Khan Academy.
Well, good morning, Representative. Great to see you.
Good morning. This is Representative Darshana Kendrick. I'm in the airport, so I'm off camera, but I'll be listening in.
Your picture looks great. And did I hear Kristen? Was that you that I heard in between that?
Yes.
Wonderful. Kristen, thank you for being here today. Looking forward to hearing from y'all as well. All right. It is right at 10 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Senate Study Committee on Artificial Intelligence, and we are combined with the House Subcommittee on Artificial Intelligence as well. And I'm hoping we may have Chairman Brad Thomas on the line. Brad, are you by chance available at this point? All right, I don't see him looped in yet, but when he gets on the line, we will have him make a few comments as well. Before we begin today, I want to thank all those folks who helped make this happen, specifically our very own Senate press office. Evan Bergwall and his team have set up this virtual meeting for us, and we're in our new studio that we have in the Legislative Office Building. So all this great equipment and technology has been their excellent work, and we're most appreciative of that. We do have some upcoming meetings that will be back in person again. The next one is going to be on October the 23rd. That is going to be out at Iron Horse Farms, which is out by Athens. And we're going to be focusing at that meeting on agriculture, which is still our largest industry in the state of Georgia, as well as workforce. The meeting after that is going to be held in November on the 8th, and that is going to be held at Emory University Hospital. And we will be focused on areas of both healthcare and public safety. And then our final meeting was originally scheduled for December the 4th. And you've probably already seen an email from Will Spencer in my office, who is sitting right to my side, that we're going to try and move that until December the 3rd, if that works for everybody, due to some scheduling conflicts. So if you'd please look at that message and respond to Will, we'd like to get that meeting time changed again to December the 3rd, again at 10 a.m. With that in mind, I just want to begin where we always do, which is to talk about why we formed this committee. This committee was formed because artificial intelligence is literally going to be the biggest thing that happens in our lifetime, and the impacts are going to be far-reaching. There's going to be great benefits. This will be the technology that will literally cure cancer and solve some of our greatest world problems, but also has significant risk. The team worked together to create a framework that most all of you have seen. I'm holding it up, but you probably can't see it too well. But the framework talks about the areas that we're focusing on, and each meeting has got a different vertical. As an example, we have labor and workforce, research and development, public safety, healthcare, transportation and infrastructure, education, and economic impact and innovation. Those are the areas that in each meeting we're pulling in different subject matter experts like we are today. However, the things that go across all of those horizontally are things such as ethics and regulation, data privacy and protection, and social welfare and equality or equity. So these are the things we're doing. We came up with a definition for artificial intelligence as well. And the goal for this committee will be to have a final report delivered in December that we will bring back to the Lieutenant Governor and other members of the Senate. And I know the House will be doing the same to bring it back to their standing committee for innovation and technology. And the goal will be for us to look at what we need to do from creating new legislation, budgeting, rules, and things of that nature to make sure that Georgia is leading in AI. And I'll finish off by saying that we have been the #1 place to do business for the last decade. We are very proud of that. In the future, we're going to need to be the #1 place for AI if we're going to continue to be the #1 place to do business. I believe they're dynamically tied together. So with that, if there are no comments from the sitting committee members, we're going to jump into our speakers. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to recognize each one of the speakers one at a time, ask that you all stay on mute if you're not talking. And then when the speaker is done, we're going to then open it up for a few questions. And we're going to let Dr. Kristen, is it DiCerbo or DiCerbo?
DiCerbo, except if
DiCerbo.
you're in Italy.
Then it's DiCerbo.
Exactly.
All right. We are really excited to have you here today with the Khan Academy. I'm a huge fan. Both of my boys are adults now, but we definitely leverage all the amazing setup you have in Khan Academy. And we're going to begin with you today. So we're going to turn it over, and I think we'll be able to drive your presentation as well and get you going.
Great. Excellent. Then I will not share my screen.
But wait, do we need her to, or are we doing this? Okay, you go ahead and share. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Okay. No, that's fine. I was all set to do it anyway. Excellent. Thank you all for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm also always happy to hear stories of folks that use Khan Academy. If there are folks who are not familiar, Khan Academy is a nonprofit that offers free instruction and practice online. We serve both independent learners who are out looking for help, parents who are out looking for help to help their students on homework. And we work with school districts to make our tools available in classrooms and for students that are working with their teachers in classrooms. And in March of 2023, we launched a AI tutor for students and assistant for teachers. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. It's called Khanmigo. But I also want to talk broadly about how we think about AI and some of the things that we've been thinking about as part of a consortium that we're part of called Teach AI that it thinks about how we teach with and for artificial intelligence. So with that said, we start off whenever we're looking at new technology at Khan Academy, first from the problems we're trying to solve, as opposed to look at what this new technology is. So you are all, I'm sure, familiar with the problems we have in math achievement and students who are underachieving in not making the full extent of their potential in part because they don't have access to good quality math instruction. That we see that many high schools don't actually even offer some of the rigorous math courses that students need that are really critical for college preparedness. And we see that in a lot of our standardized test scores. For us, we know that students learn best when they're able to engage in independent practice. When that engagement is actively helping them make connections with what they know, not just engage like clicking buttons as they do in a lot of online digital experiences, but thinking about the content and working through problems. We also know that students learn when they're working on something that's just at the edge of what they know. And when you think about learning something new, if you're practicing something and you can do it no problem, this is easy, it's probably not something you're actually learning new. On the other hand, if it's too difficult, then you're going to get frustrated and give up. So one of the pieces that we always try to do is identify what is that learning edge for students and how can we help them. But the trick is when you're doing that, you need a little bit of support to learn. And if you're a single teacher in a class of 25 students, it's hard for one teacher to provide that little bit of support that the student needs when they're learning something new, or to give the immediate feedback that we also know is important when students are learning, whether it's math or writing. It's really difficult. And we know teachers end up with stacks of work to grade overnight and weekends. So for all of those reasons, we have thought, first, we think that technology can help with some of those problems. But as we started working with the generative AI tools, we saw that specifically we think it could be good for assisting with some of these problems about getting that support, helping kids get unstuck when they're working on some of this practice that we know is so important. So that said, I have a video, but I'm going to go to a live shot here of our website. So these are all the courses that we have on Khan Academy. I'll go to algebra because it is one of our most common courses. Students work on Khan Academy on skills, and they go as they move through skills from familiar to proficient to mastered on those skills, so they can get those little squares filled in as they move to give you a sense of how this works. But students who are working on a problem on Khan Academy generally get something that looks like this. So here's the problem that they need to solve, and here's some help if they need it. They can ask for hints. But with Khanmigo is over here in this corner. If they bring up Khanmigo, they can actually help the student be able to solve this problem. So the student can say, help me solve this. They can, hey, I want to try a similar example. They can say, why should I care about learning this? You can imagine no students ever asked that before. I'm going to say, can you just give me the answer? One of the things that we have done here with Khanmigo is to provide a lot of guardrails and safety nets that aren't in the big, popular, freely, available models. When you think about ChatGPT, that's not designed specifically for education. If you put this problem into ChatGPT, it'll just give you all the steps and give you the final answer. Our idea is that we can build systems that are specifically designed for education. We can put in more of these guardrails, like not giving students the answer. We also record these chat histories, and students can go and look at their old chat histories if they need help. But also teachers and parents have visibility into the students' chat histories and can get a summary of the chat histories. So it helps address those issues when we think about how are students just getting AI to do their work. That's not what's going on here. And those are some of the guardrails that I think are specific to education applications. So Khanmigo has come back and said, I can't give you the answer directly, but I can help you figure it out. What are the steps you've tried so far? And I can just say, I don't know where to start. So what's happening here is we're taking what the student says, plus the problem they're working on. Notice I didn't have to type in the problem. It knew what the problem was. We also pass in the answer to that problem that humans have generated, because when we pass that to the AI, it's more accurate. And we pass in our hint systems, so the AI has visibility into that. So we're not training a new model. We're actually using we use OpenAI's models. We've started off with GPT-4. We're now on GPT 4.0. So everything gets passed to that model, and that model gives a response back that you're seeing here. So no worries, let's start by simplifying the equation. Can you identify any like terms on either side of the equation? So this is what tutoring and help getting unstuck can look like in math. I'm going to show you one other piece just so you get a sense again of the kinds of things that are possible with AI. We have a bunch of activities that are not just tutoring, things like debate me, chat with a literary character. But one of the things that I'm most excited about is Writing Coach. And the Writing Coach takes students from initially thinking about what their assignment is. So this is a 10th grade assignment. It's a persuasive essay. they need to write an argumentative essay about whether leisure time should be scheduled or unscheduled. So students can first talk about, ask Khanmigo to explain what an argumentative essay is. So it does that. They can have a conversation about that. They can move through outlining, drafting, and then once they have drafted it, Khanmigo then can give feedback. And what it does is it can give feedback right now for a persuasive essay on the introduction, the evidence and reasoning, it has 3 comments there. The structure has 1 comment. The conclusion has 2 comments in style and tone. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, Khanmigo's walk through the essay. It says, to make your introduction even stronger, consider providing some context or background information on the topic scheduled versus unscheduled leisure time. This will help the reader understand why this is significant. Now, I can ask it to give me an example or explain the suggestion. I can ask a question, or I can revise it and have it check my revision. So again, when we think about the problem that it's so hard for teachers to give students a lot of writing exercises because they have so much, it's so difficult to give feedback. And we know that feedback will take a week, 10 days, so students aren't getting that immediate feedback that's going to be most beneficial. This can help support that. Now, we're not grading. We have not found that these generative tools are good enough yet to grade. They're kind of easy graders. We give it a 5-point rubric. It tends to say, yeah, that's a 4, that's a 5, when humans are saying, that's a 2 or a 3. So again, this is meant to be an assistant for teachers, but not to replace what the teachers are doing. And on that note of being an assistant for teachers, as soon as we started showing this to teachers, they started saying things like, hey, we'd really like to be able to use this ourselves to do things. And so we have developed about 25 activities here that are for teachers. And the teacher tools, because of a partnership we have with Microsoft, are freely available for all teachers across the US to use. So if they just go to Khanmigo.ai, they can come in here and help and get help writing lesson plans, writing discussion prompts, thinking about how they can, unpack those standards into learning objectives for their students, thinking about helping rewrite text so it's at different levels of reading for different students in their classes. One of my favorite things, though, is this class snapshot. So we talk a lot about teachers using data from their students to help them figure out what students need to do next. But we generally hear that's pretty difficult for teachers to dive into all that data and figure out what it should look like. With Class Snapshot, they can have a conversation with the AI about their students' assessment results or their practice results and get recommendations for what they should do next, and then be able to, if it's in Khan Academy, assign it with 1 click so that they can move on and work through being able to do a little bit of that differentiation for students who are at different levels based on their data and what they're doing. So that's the student side of things, or the teacher side of things, and what they're doing. So that said, I know that you all are definitely thinking about policy and what that might look like as well. So I'll just share a little bit more of some of the things that, as part of that Teach AI consortium, which includes ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, ETS, the World Economic Forum, and about 100 organizations, and including some state departments of education that are part of this. We've pulled together, you can see that 62% of students are concerned about security and privacy of their data. So for us, as we think about that, we make sure that in our agreements with OpenAI, no student or teacher data, no data from Khan Academy is used to train the models that OpenAI uses. So there's a hard wall there in terms of what that looks like. And we have clear data deletion policies. So all that chat data from OpenAI is deleted on the OpenAI site after 30 days. So clear thinking about what does it look like to have clear policies around data privacy and security. Students also want guidance on how to use generative AI. So when I've been talking to students, this is the biggest thing for them, is that they just want to know, when are they allowed to use it and when are they not allowed to use it, and what does it mean to cheat and what does it mean to get help? So helping students set some of those policies, I think, is a big lift for a lot of school districts. and thinking about, the support that they need. Teachers do see the importance of AI literacy, and say that in 2023 that their school doesn't yet have clear policies for AI in education. So that's clearly some work to do there. Parents are also pretty optimistic about the potential, and feel that schools are preparing students to succeed in an AI future. So they're pretty optimistic about their schools, which is great. But only 1 in 5 teachers feel like they're equipped to use generative AI tools in the classroom. And only about 29% as of last March have received any professional development in AI. So I think this upskilling is definitely one of those places where we can build capacity for thinking about education. There's some other things, thinking about how we promote AI literacy, both for students and for teachers, being able to help equip schools with guidance on the responsible use of AI and thinking about how we might do that. So again, happy to talk about either Khan Academy specific things or some of the things that we're not a policy shop, but in our discussions with schools and teachers and parents, these are some of the things that have come up as needs and what students are looking for. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Wow, Kristen, that was incredible. I did spend a little time playing with Khanmigo when we first reached out to you, and it is truly extraordinary. I'll also start with a question, then it'll open up to some of our committee members. I look at this a little bit akin to back when I was in school. It was when you could use a calculator. And of course, now everybody uses a calculator. And then it was for someone you could use a computer. And I wonder, with the when use part that you were mentioning toward the end, when is that not even a question anymore, do you think? When it's just you're using it all the time?
Yeah, I think there's still going to be a place, even now, there's times in schools when we ask kids not to use a calculator sometimes because we want them to work through the procedure themselves so they understand it on a math question, for example. Or there's times when we ask them, this is not the time when you're supposed to Google the answer. This is the time when we do things without them. So I still think there's going to be cases when it's okay to use AI, in some cases where we want students to work through things without AI. But I think certainly the scales are going to shift from now, where it's more of a special case when you can use it, to it turning to being a special case when you can't use it. I do think there's some difference between school and the workforce. So what I hear from people who are in business and industry is people trying to encourage their workforce employees to use AI to make them more productive. And then right now in school, higher ed and primary, secondary, are saying, oh no, don't use it. Oh, that's cheating, that's plagiarism. And that's a disconnect right there that I think we need to be clear, because I think the workforce folks are going to want people coming out of schools with the skills to be able to use AI productively.
Wow. Okay. That's very exciting. I'm going to open it up to the committee members. If you've got a question and you just want to unmute, and please announce who you are, if you don't mind. So we are having folks join, and not everybody's on the line, so I didn't have a chance for everybody to introduce themselves. But if you'll just introduce yourself briefly before you ask a question, that'd be great. Why don't we take down the presentation, if you wouldn't mind, just so we could see everybody's names. Kristen, thank you.
Hi, Kristen.
Right.
This is Fred Miskawi. I'm on the committee. I'm part of CGI, a global corporation. I'm reminded of the Two Sigma Problem by Benjamin Bloom, and of the Diamond Age by Neil Stevenson. When you have access to one-on-one tutoring, you have some pretty amazing results. So with your service, Khanmigo, I have two sons, 16 and 14. They both use Khan Academy. What kind of results have you seen as a result of students having that one-to-one type of tutoring?
Yes, good question. For those who haven't read Diamond Age, there's a whole stream of it with this young girl who finds what in today's age sounds like a generative AI book. They call it the Young Ladies Primer. And so we think of that book often. So we're about a year, we've had one full school year in to working with the AI tools. I will start off by saying we have not done any randomized control trials or efficacy studies on purpose, because we think the first year of any new technology, we need to understand, what does good implementation look like? How do we want teachers to use this in their classroom? So we worked with about 53 school districts last year. We did a lot of observations in classrooms, interviews with students, teachers, and administrators, looking through our own data, looking at those chat transcripts to see how students are using it and what that is. So I'm not able to say we've achieved, X% more learning, but what we have seen is that teachers and students are excited by the ability to help get that extra help in tutoring, especially when the teacher's not immediately available. We found English language learners in particular really liked the ability, because Kamigo can speak to them in their home language, just off the shelf. Officially we support Spanish and Portuguese, but if you talk to it in other languages, it can respond in those languages as well. So that's been a big piece. We found that teachers use it not just to plan their lessons, but also to brush up on the content themselves. So if they get pulled into substitute in a class they haven't taught for a while, or those kinds of things, we have a refresh my knowledge activity they can use. Those kinds of things we found were popular for teachers. On the downside, we found, perhaps not surprisingly, that the technology doesn't come, people don't just sit down and be able to use it perfectly. That there needs to be some professional learning for teachers on how to use it and how to integrate it into their classrooms. And students need some help figuring out how to ask good questions. And that's not unique to interacting with AI. They're also, as we talk to teachers, sometimes not great at asking good questions of their teachers. But we find some more than we would like, sometimes very short student input, things like IDK, which not even typing, I don't know, using text speak, IDK. And as we started working with teachers to work with students, the more that students are able to say, I don't understand this, or I'm confused about that, the more help that the AI is going to be. So there's also some work on helping develop kids and teachers skills with working with the technology itself. So that's a little bit of what we've learned in the first year. And this year, as we've just kicked off the school year, we have a couple of district partnerships who've agreed to partner with us on more rigorous quantitative research, and we'll be able to get some of those impact on test score kinds of metrics.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah.
Wow, that was incredible, Kristen. Thank you. Especially interested when you said things like a substitute teacher coming in to get a quick refresher course and other things. That's amazing, because a lot of times we think more so from the student level than we are the teacher level, and I think they're certainly equally yoked. Other questions from the committee members for Kristen?
Hi, Kristen. My name is Robin Crittenden, and thank you so much for your presentation. That was excellent. And this is really amazing, the work that you're doing. And definitely with my daughter, we used Khan over the years. It's been many years now, but we used it. So appreciate that. I just had a question. Just when you mentioned, I think you said there were 53 schools that were involved this past year. Could you just tell a little bit about the schools and the grades that were involved, and and I know you didn't do too much in terms of studying, but if there were differences in terms of use among different schools and different grades, kind of how that worked?
Sure. So the districts were all the way from Alaska to Palm Beach County, Florida. So all across the geographic spectrum. We also had a pretty big combination of rural, suburban, urban, and schools with various levels of free and reduced lunch and working through. So it was pretty varied. I will say, since I'm speaking to a state legislature, that 20 of them were in Indiana, because the Secretary of Education in Indiana put out an RFP at the beginning of the year that districts could apply for support to use an AI-powered tutor. And about 20 districts who took them up on that funding also then partnered with us to do that. There were a couple of other AI-powered tutors that other districts also chose to use. So that gave those school districts the support that they needed to be able to implement Conmigo in their districts. What we found was that most districts did not want to jump right off the cliff and do this for every student in their district. And that totally makes sense. So most of them chose to do specific pilots, either with a couple of grade levels or a couple of subjects. So some schools decided on math, some schools decided to focus on humanities, some on SAT preparation, particularly in states where the SAT is available as a summative high school exam. So lots of different use cases for us. So as we looked across those, we certainly saw that I will add that the Indiana Department of Ed has recently put out a report where they had done some teacher surveys as a result of all of that work, and they have some reports on the teachers' perceptions of how this all went. And those surveys generally found that the teachers thought that it was helpful both for helping their students. So the majority of respondents said that, yes, they thought this is going to have a positive impact on their students' learning, and that they thought it had a positive impact on their own planning time and the amount of time that they were spending planning. So I'm happy to share a link to that report if you all are interested in seeing it as well.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
very
Thank
much
you
so. That's great. And I'm going to ask our Senate press folks, Bennett, if you could make it so we can see everybody's picture. And if you want to use the hand raise button, Chairman Thomas and I were just talking about that. So I will turn it over to him. I think he's next to speak, if that's correct. Brad, are you there? We can't hear you. All right, we're experiencing technical difficulties while working on Brad. Does anybody else have questions for Kristen? All right, I don't see any other questions. Brad, if you want to text me your question, I can ask it for you. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. All right, it's coming.
I'm happy to take it from the chat too. I'm happy to take it from the chat.
Yeah,
too, if
actually,
that works.
the chat might be just as easy. Yeah. Probably quicker to type it in than if you're doing me with my fat fingers.
Then your thumbs on your phone, yes.
That's right. And then after this question, we will conclude. I know you've got another engagement today, so we won't take too much of your time. We'll move on to our next speaker after Brad's questions answered.
We need a little hold music here while we eagerly await this. Helping children in failing schools. So we have not specifically looked at, how does this work in schools with different pieces. I do want to emphasize that this is most helpful when it is in combination with a quality classroom teacher who can also support this learning. But it is the case that the tutoring on Khan Academy and the addition of the AI-powered tutor can certainly help support those cases, whether there's a lot of kids in the school, or if you have teachers who are perhaps not math experts, which particularly tends to happen in elementary school. These tools can help provide some more of that math support. Or writing support for those teachers as well, who are able to think about how we can think about what the problems of those schools are, and be able to provide, if the problems relate to having teachers that have the qualifications to teach some of the topics, or if it has to do with being able to have enough people to do those things. So I think there's opportunities in both of those scenarios. And to the point I was making before, we actually have a college algebra course that we teach as kind of a dual enrollment, and the teachers, before they teach that class, have to get mastery in the class themselves. So there's also a teacher professional development angle here that's possible, where teachers can demonstrate their own content knowledge by using Khan Academy as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Kristen. Dr. Kristen, I'm going to say it right, the Cherbo, You've been amazing. Thank you for the great work the Khan Academy does. We will look forward to doing some follow-up with you. Any information you can send to us, we will distribute out to all the committee members and Will Spencer in my office. So thank you again for your time today.
Great. Thanks everyone for having me.
Thank you so much. And I know Chairman Thomas in the House is having a little technical difficulties. But when he gets back on, I want to give him a chance to say a few words. We're going to jump in next, though, to Mr. Daniel Hales, who is part of the Future Privacy Forum, who's also going to talk about education. And this is a group that I participate in as well, which is a multi-state working group of state legislators. And they have helped spearhead a lot of great work for us, and we're most appreciative. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Daniel.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm going to pull up my slides quickly.
Wonderful.
All right, can you guys see that?
No, not yet.
All right, try again.
Got a, hang on a second. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Good morning, members of the Senate Study Committee on AI. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak before you on such a timely and important topic. I'm with FPF, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization committed to developing principled best practices and analysis for data privacy and emerging technologies. FPF is a global organization and focuses on several different issue areas for data privacy and emerging technologies. My name is Daniel Hales, and I'm a policy fellow for the Youth and Education Privacy Team at the Future of Privacy Forum. The topic of my presentation for you today is AI in U.S. K-12 education. So before we jump into the content, I want to quickly give a rundown on the order and content of this presentation. I will start by first talking about the background on the uses of AI in education, which will provide both brief context on the history of AI use in K-12 spaces and example use cases for how AI is used by teachers, schools, and students today, focusing primarily on examples with which leverage generative AI. Following this overview of AI use and impact in schools, I will describe some of the AI-specific challenges in schools and why these challenges are so important. Following that, I will discuss how AI challenges are being addressed so far, and then I will wrap up with some quick policy considerations for immediate steps forward on policies for adopting AI in schools while preserving student privacy. So let's talk about AI in education. For starters, AI use in education is not new. In fact, algorithms and analytic technologies and AI have been in a large majority of K-12 instructional spaces for more than a decade. Artificial intelligence is, in both a technical and societal sense, a broad spectrum of technologies, which includes search algorithms, machine learning, natural language processing, and large language models, among other models and systems. With all the different kinds of AI systems out there, it can be hard to keep up with what's what. And to organize the way that we think about AI in education, let's chunk the way that we're talking about this. So AI can be categorized into two broad groups, predictive AI and generative AI. Predictive AI systems have had a longer history in education and use algorithms to identify patterns and forecast outcomes based on historical and real-time data. By identifying patterns and trends within large data sets, predictive AI models enable educators to make accurate and informed predictions on various scenarios, ranging from business operations to student outcomes. A few examples of predictive artificial intelligence include student lunch biometric payment processing systems, adaptive learning assessments, and early warning systems. Now, if AI has been historically used in schools for years now, what's the new challenge that is sparking a lot of discussion in the educational and policy space today? And the answer is generative AI. The rise of generative AI and proliferation of generative pre-trained transformer models, which are also called GPTs, has created a whole world of opportunities for educators, students, and schools. But like its presence in other spaces, it has also created and highlighted a lot of unique challenges for data privacy, security, and safety. Generative AI, which I will also call Gen AI throughout this presentation, is a recent development in artificial intelligence systems, which focuses on creating new text, code, image, video, and audio content by learning patterns from existing data. What's significant about this development is, unlike traditional predictive AI models that are focused on classification or prediction, generative AI models can generate novel outputs that resemble the data that they were trained on. While the initial concerns over AI technologies in schools initially revolved around plagiarism and cheating, over roughly the last year and a half, as new models developed, especially for EdTech and instructional specific use cases, the challenges, hesitations, and focus on the topic of AI in education has also evolved. That's not to say that those challenges or concerns don't still exist, but there are mounting challenges and concerns that are new for the EdTech specific apps that we have. That said, because use case and context is really important when we talk about educational benefits weighed against the risk and challenge of AI, I will quickly cover some common use cases of AI in education. However, seeing some of the other wonderful speakers that we have on this panel that can also talk about very helpful use cases in the education context, I will quickly run over these before addressing some of the broader challenges. Before we go over the common use cases among schools, this slide actually previews a forthcoming infographic that FPF will be releasing, which covers artificial intelligence in education specifically, and it provides example systems and use cases for various kinds of artificial intelligence for committee consideration to help distinguish across the different systems. All right, so quickly covering some of the institution or school-focused uses and opportunities. AI can be used for administrative support, admissions, and student support services. On the teacher level, for teacher-focused uses and opportunities, it can be used to help automate tasks, to help with lesson planning. It can be used for data-driven instruction, professional development, and it can help with enhanced effectiveness of technology-supported teaching. And then for the student-focused uses and opportunities, it is very beneficial for personalized learning opportunities, 24/7 tutoring, some mental health and well-being use cases. It can be used for creativity apps and uses. As Dr. DeCerbo also noted, it can be very useful for workforce readiness and preparing digital literacy skills within children to better prepare them for an AI-equipped workforce. And it can also help with supporting learner differentiation. So even though there are a lot of great opportunities for the use of AI in education, this opportunity does not come without some important ethical considerations and challenges to think through before fully adopting AI into school systems. Some important ethical considerations that arise in the education space with AI tools include bias in algorithms, where the quality of the underlying data set may be lacking and unrepresentative of students and their needs, or where a data set is limited in its capacity to consider the diverse set of factors and characteristics of each student for which it may assess data or make decisions. An example of this could be with non-native English speakers. This can lead to discriminatory impacts in acceptance to educational programs, cheat detection, or instructional placement. Second, and somewhat related to the bias consideration, is equity and access, which involves ensuring that an AI tool benefits all students for a given use case and does not harm or exclude any groups. This means that when introducing AI into an instructional space, schools need to promote equal access to AI and technologies. Finally, data privacy is a big ethical consideration here when talking about AI systems, especially generative AI, which are very data-hungry systems, and there are open questions about whether the data demands of a particular AI system may be fit for the purpose and use of a particular education use case. And while this doesn't heed warning to not use AI, is just a consideration to keep in mind when you're thinking about whether a particular tool is right for a particular purpose. Additionally, there are concerns that the outputs of generative AI systems could expose sensitive data, which will be elaborated upon a little bit more below when I'm talking about some of these legal compliance challenges. So alongside ethical considerations, there are also critical legal compliance challenges for generative AI use in schools. The first area of legal compliance issues is use case dependency. So generative AI tools are powerful in the sense that the user can use plain language to request that the tool perform any number of tasks compared to traditional edtech tools, which generally have more limited functions and outputs. Because of the broader range of output and task capabilities, it is important to consider use cases for the AI tool and if the tool can be used for unauthorized purposes, so you can put up guardrails to protect against unauthorized uses. Additionally, where some use cases may involve the use of student data as an input into the system to produce an output with identifiers, for example, in a circumstance where a teacher is evaluating a student assignment and asks the AI tool to provide a grading output that contains student identifiers, this use case may trigger more student data legal obligations and protections than other use cases that may only involve an input with personally identifiable information or no student information at all. Because of this variance, there are legal compliance challenges where different AI use cases may trigger different legal obligations. The next area of legal compliance challenges is that data collection and processing could include proprietary information. So similar to what I was describing with the use case dependency issue, where there is an open-ended text box interface that allows users to input information to that system, the school may not be able to control all the information the tool collects. And as a result, the landscape is unclear on if the use of student personally identifiable information for product improvement and how that will be handled moving forward, and especially where current technology is immature and being able to detect and filter out student personally identifiable information on the input side. The next area of legal compliance challenges, and one of the more difficult challenges in terms of student privacy legal obligations, is transparency and explainability. As I mentioned, generative AI tools rely on massive amounts of data to train their models, and that training compounds over time. So even the developer of a particular tool may not be able to explain why the AI system made the decisions it did as a result of discrete input from a student or teacher or whoever's using the AI system. This becomes particularly problematic in terms of FERPA obligations. So under FERPA, a school must provide parents with the ability to inspect, review, and correct a student's educational record and the right to get an explanation on how that educational record was made. In use cases where student PII is an input to the system or where tools are being used to create new records as outputs, complying with these FERPA obligations can become very difficult in the context of generative AI, where the technology is often described as a black box, whereby developers and by extension schools may not be able to explain why a specific output or decision was made by a particular tool. These obligations around student data use and obligations for transparency and explainability can also be further expanded by state student privacy laws. So we are in uncharted territory, and there is not a clear consensus on if the result of training a large language model on education records are themselves education records. These questions pose a challenge for generative AI use in schools where transparency and explainability are more difficult to achieve. Another challenge is for the limits in use of student data for product improvement. So similar to transparency standards, there are also legal obligations under both federal and state student privacy laws, which either prohibit the use of student data for product improvement or have special restrictions on the kinds of data and purposes for which that data may be used for product improvement. With AI systems that train on the data that they are provided, these varying legal mandates on data used for product improvement may become increasingly challenging. Another big issue arises when using AI tools that are able to repurpose user input into the training model and use that information to create a new output. With these particular systems, there is a concern and challenge around ensuring that student personally identifiable information does not appear in the AI EdTech tool's output, especially where there have been documented cases in the AI world in general of user outputs getting leaked into particular outputs. This challenge is in part protected by existing law, where FERPA requirements prohibit vendors from resharing student personally identifiable information, except under school direction or given an applicable FERPA exception. However, while existing FERPA law could provide redress for violations where that student data is improperly leaked as an output, FERPA does not really place restrictions or requirements on the steps a company would need to take on the front end to prevent these sorts of unauthorized disclosures. The possibility that student data will be disclosed in an unauthorized manner in a generative AI output is still a lingering legal question. The challenge of high-risk decision-making is a newer area of law to consider. In many instances, use cases that involve automated substantive decision-making require some level of heightened scrutiny, such as requiring risk assessments, parent consent, or even being banned in certain cases. In the school context, the use of AI to facilitate admissions decisions is within the scope of newer legislative approaches for regulating high-risk AI systems. And these may also need to be thought about as far as the requirements for high-risk decision-making, in addition to the state and education privacy law applications. Lastly, for hallucinations, hallucination is an output generated containing false or misleading information. While a lot of work is being done on the vendor and developer side to address hallucinations and significantly reduce the risk of occurrence, especially in the EdTech context, this challenge still remains, and the occurrence and monitoring of hallucinations and generative AI technologies can be really hard to recognize at times. And so the potential for hallucinations risks teachers and students' reliance on false or misleading information when using these AI tools in education contexts. So we have all these challenges, and how are these challenges, if at all, being addressed right now? So as I've somewhat hinted at throughout this presentation, there are existing laws and legislative approaches that already exist and command data protection requirements for student data in context of EdTech tools. And these laws and requirements will and do still apply in AI tools in schools. At a high level, existing laws and approaches include FERPA, which provides the right to inspect, review, and correct the education record, as well as the right to know how education decisions are made. And these requirements will have to be figured out within the context of AI tools where there are transparency and explainability issues. There's also the Protection of Pupil Rights and Privacy Act, it's also called the PPRA, which protects information that the school could obtain from a student related to certain sensitive information categories, like religion and political beliefs, among 6 other categories. The PPRA requires notice, parental consent, and provides opt-out rights. So it's important to consider what information might be put into an AI system and what the use case is to account for if that system is collecting these sensitive kinds of information covered by the PPRA. There's also a very robust collection of student privacy laws and protections on the state level that will also have relevant applications for protecting student data when using generative AI systems. So it's very important to review that law and see where those applications are and where gaps in the laws and protections that already exist are before crafting AI-specific regulations. And then as for emerging laws or legislative approaches, there are 3 different approaches to be aware of here that could or will have applications for AI use in K-12 education. First, we have some state comprehensive laws and laws on the governance of AI and consequential decisions, which have both been avenues that states have taken to place special requirements on the use of AI to make consequential decisions. And these laws have been written to include education admissions and education opportunity decisions. So having an awareness that there are already laws that address these high-risk decisions is important for current adoption processes and for determining how to forge a path forwards. And then another important mention is that some states have begun to introduce laws which direct state departments of education to put out guidance on AI use in schools and require school districts and institutions of higher learning to adopt specific policies for AI use in education. 2 examples from this past legislative session are Virginia, which had initially introduced a bill, but that bill was later withdrawn around the end of January when Governor Youngkin put out Executive Order 30, which required the Department of Education to develop the same policy requirements that the bill would have required. So although the bill didn't pass substantively, that did go into effect in Virginia, what the bill would have required. And then the other example is Tennessee, which passed HB 1711 this year, and that directs the creation of AI policies for use in schools. While I don't think that either of these directives or processes have produced a sample policy guidance document yet, those could be states to look out for to see what they come out with for consideration on if there's any lessons or things to be borrowed from the approaches that they're taking. So aside from existing law or legislative approaches, there's also state guidance. So FBF has done some research into existing AI and K-12 guidance on the state level, and we had found 22 states with some form of state guidance on this topic. We have put together a document, which I will make sure I send to Will Spencer to circulate to everyone for consideration, that contains a chart of the 22 states with some analysis points for committee consideration. And so again, I will make sure I get that to you. High-level takeaways on the current state of state-level guidance on AI are that guidance across states is still in the early stages, and some states have put out guidance while others have just started compiling related and useful resources to serve as a stopgap while figuring out more formal guidance options. Second, there is a general recognition of data privacy risks related to the use of AI systems, particularly generative AI systems, which could be carefully evaluated to determine which risks are already accounted for under existing privacy laws, regulations, and guidelines, and which risks could use new requirements, regulatory framing, or discussion. And finally, another big thing to highlight is that a lot of states have recommended that existing policies for data protection, such as required privacy policies, should be updated to include AI language as opposed to creating new policies. This is incredibly helpful because incorporating AI language explanations and protections within existing policies can help with the feasibility and clarity while reducing confusion by creating additional frameworks to what is already robustly in effect currently. So I won't get into the slide too much, but this is another way that the AI challenges can be addressed. And this is the key takeaways from how schools who should have formal processes in place to evaluate ed tech tools for use within the school or school district could incorporate AI considerations. And so there are these existing policies. Most schools and school districts have formal policies for app vetting. And this slide highlights some of the existing things that still apply in the school context, while also identifying a couple of points where AI specific considerations can be implemented. So finally, as far as considerations for next steps on policy pathways forward, first, there aren't many clear answers yet, and more information is still needed before model regulatory proposals can be adopted. So it's recommended to continue holding these very important study committees or interim studies on AI use in education to sort through all the different layers, factors, and considerations involved in consultation with key stakeholders such as school officials, teachers, and edtech industry actors like Dr. DeCerbo. Second, intermediate guidance can help direct schools' ability to vet and adopt AI, and this would be very beneficial. Even in the absence of fully formed regulatory solutions and frameworks, providing guidance that incorporates considerations that give schools an idea of what they should be considering or what they should be undertaking when vetting generative AI apps and unique AI harms would be incredibly helpful for helping them continue to develop those processes on their end. And finally, consider adopting provisions that address AI-specific harms and challenges within existing frameworks. This somewhat aligns with what some of the state guidance policies are also directing, which is, we have these robust systems of privacy for education and student data. And so seeing where AI-specific considerations can be adopted within these frameworks could be very beneficial for compliance and understanding how these requirements work within existing contexts.
Daniel, thank you for. Oh, go ahead. Continue.
Sorry,
on.
I was just going to say I have a couple of additional resources for the consideration, but thank you so much for your time and for inviting me in. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Wonderful. Daniel, thank you for this very comprehensive presentation. Really appreciate the great work of the FPF group. Just to start out with, data privacy came up. It's a bill that we got through the Senate, just kind of missed on the last day of the House that I think we're going to focus on. Hopefully next year, probably be one of the outputs of this committee. But if you look at the other states, because you've been helping out with the multi-state policy group, et cetera, is there one or two states that you think are really doing a very good comprehensive job that we should be looking at more so than others?
Right. So I think that there's still very early stages for AI regulation generally. I think that as far as a student and education context, the jury is somewhat still out on what a model approach looks like. And there's still, right now, the approach is primarily study and figuring out where the gaps are in student privacy frameworks. However, there are promising approaches, which I'm sure you've discussed in the multi-state working group with Tatiana, around how to regulate the high-risk decision-making systems that, for the education context, can produce or scopes in the admissions decisions or educational opportunity decisions as consequential decisions. And so looking at some of the promising frameworks that we've seen come out of Colorado could be beneficial, but there's still a lot of work and study that's going out on that.
Oh, that's great. Other questions from the committee members? I think I see a hand up from Chairman Thomas. Is that you?
Can you hear me this time?
We've got you.
All right. Way easier than typing in the chat. So I have 2 kids that are in elementary school right now. And I think a part of this whole, well, I've always believed that in order to get everybody set up, the future generation set up, education, this is really where AI really starts, to investing in the state of Georgia and what we need to do to make sure that our state's staying ahead. Have you seen, and this kind of parlays off the question I asked a little bit ago, have you seen any type of data or any kind where, AI is brought into maybe schools that haven't been traditionally as successful, and if there's any immediate gaps that can be filled, trying to get some of these kids up to speed, specifically in literacy has been one of my big concerns, early childhood literacy. Is there any, and it's, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, so I'm not exactly sure the question how I want to ask it, but could you talk about that for just a second?
Yeah, so I have not looked too much into the data, though that is a very important question. In some of the state compiled resources, there might be information or data that's currently going out about that to help inform the way that schools are thinking about how they should adopt AI technologies in schools. Additionally, within the additional resources for consideration slide of the presentation that I sent over, one of the links that I included is a MSBA AI toolkit, and that's from, I believe, the state of Missouri, and it talks about their AI use cases, but it also includes some statistics in there that they found important, and that might include some of the statistics that you're looking for.
Yeah, because I see not only using, because I see AI in the classroom not just being like a tutorial or tutoring system, but also some administrative systems as well that help the teachers be more effective. I brought up the 2 kids in elementary school because my daughter's first grade teacher sends stuff out at like 9 o'clock at night. And I hate to see that she's working at 9 o'clock at night to write a newsletter that an AI probably could write, maybe not as well as her, but still close. And so I'm just curious, kind of drilling down more into the administrative side. I mean, do you see states, adopting not just the tutorial side of AI, but more, administrative, hands-on, maybe automated grading, stuff like that? In their systems, or kind of what they're doing? Is that common or not so much?
Yeah, so a growing use case for AI technologies is for helping with efficiency and productiveness for teachers, right? I think that you're identifying that 2 of the most valuable resources are a teacher's time and their capacity, and AI serves as a great opportunity for those very critical resources. Some use cases that help with that are there are some technologies out there that can assist in like even writing recommendation letters for teachers to help bring that time burden down. There are tools that can help with lesson planning. There are tools that can help with grading assessment as an assistant to a teacher, as opposed to just doing the grading itself. But that is a growing number of the use cases is to help with the efficiency and productiveness. That is one of the biggest opportunities for AI tools in schools.
No, thank you.
And I think Professor Pascal, I think I see your hand up as well next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a question about the use of generative AI, but in a much more specialized way, right? So you don't have to necessarily use a large language model. You can actually use part of it and then specialize for a particular domain, for instance, for a particular district. Is there any regulation if you are actually using the data in a very restricted fashions there? It doesn't leave the district, but the districts would use AI for making some of these high-stakes decisions that you were talking about. Is there any regulation about that where there would be no privacy issue in a sense? The data would be, completely isolated within the district.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I wouldn't say that I know of any regulation that currently incorporates that. However, I will say that another important consideration here is market forces and how the industry is responding to this. And because of the legal challenges around these data privacy questions within state and education privacy laws, something that some vendors might do is create an LLM for each district to guardrail and like insulate that data so that you don't have that risk. So similar to what you're saying, rather than that being a regulation, it is something that industry is thinking through doing themselves to help with the student privacy efforts.
Excellent, thank you.
So you're saying a little maybe more isolation than regulation might help that. That's an interesting perspective. Fred, I think I see your hand up as well.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Daniel, got a question for you. If you were to talk to an administrator, given the existing legal landscape, what advice would you give them to do or not to do or to avoid, given the existing regulatory landscape?
Yeah, so the two big things that come to mind on this, first is, I said this like a million times, but really consider the use case. First, to consider whether adopting a generative AI tool is fit for the purpose. But second, also to think through how, for that specific use case, you want to guardrail some of the challenges that I discussed or put up some, mitigate some of the risks around the challenges that we are observing right now. And second is to consider what information is going to be going into that system and what information will be coming out of it. So on the input side, what is that tool designed for? Is it something that teachers are trying to use that they will put in student personal information to get grading outcomes or to use to assist them with grading? Because if so, then you want to think through a greater number of legal obligations and data protection mitigation techniques because you're putting in personal information. Additionally, if you're using grading tools to also produce an output that has identifiable information about a student, again, that can come with its own legal obligations. So you really want to consider, like, is a tool going to be used without having to have any personal information involved at all, because that will be lower risk and it's easier to think through how to adopt that within a school system. And then also thinking through use cases where you are trying to adopt a tool where it does use personal information. And that doesn't necessarily mean don't use those tools because it's trying to use personal information. It just means that you want to be careful and really thoughtful in preparing to adopt that tool so that you can successfully address the legal obligations that might be triggered and make sure that it is safe for that school use.
Thank you, Daniel.
Very good. Daniel, thank you for your great presentation here. I don't see any other hands up at this point. I want to just tell the committee members, you already have copies of Daniel's presentation, and we'll make sure everybody's got contact information as well. And again, we appreciate the great work you did for us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Next up, we're going to hear from our very own Georgia Department of Education. We've got April and Levita, and I think they're going to tag team a little bit on this. So I'm going to turn it over to you fine ladies.
Thank you so much. And we are just really glad to be with you all today. And this is just really a nice segue to where we're going to go to share some information about AI in K-12 education. I really want to take a minute and just honor the fact that both of our speakers are really talking about key components that we are working with in K-12 when we really focus on how is AI going to impact education. And I really appreciated our first speaker, Dr. Sarabo, when she really talked about a nice balance between the role of the AI tool but also the role of standards and the role of a teacher in the classroom. And I think that's really important as we think about AI in the classroom. And then our last speaker, he really talked about the pieces of AI that really we have to focus on to demystify, right? The data privacy, the sharing, the legal part of how we begin to use AI in our classroom. So as we kind of share today, we're going to hit on some of those things. And Lavita, if you'll go ahead and move it to the next slide, we'll really focus in on three key pieces. We're really focusing on AI literacy. So how do we help educators and students to really identify the AI in their world and how it extends human capabilities, how it really focuses on critical thinking, analysis, usage. And that moves us into really thinking about AI and how it impacts teaching and learning. And that's how is AI changing what's happening inside the four classroom walls, inside our school buildings, and inside the learning environment and ecosystem that we all know extends even beyond that classroom. But, really focusing on AI instructional tools and how do you not only use those tools to maybe streamline many of the activities, but how you also extend that thinking and learning capacity and how you select the right tool at the right moment to really empower the learning that can happen in the classroom. And then thirdly, really focusing on how we can develop a workforce that's capable of developing AI agents that will inevitably change how our society operates. So really what's happening now in the classroom and moving to what's going to happen beyond. And this next slide will really speak to that really thought process around how AI can really maximize an educator's time. And did you know that like 20 to 40% of an educator's time is really spent on administrative duties that support learning? So this is really a place where we feel like when we take AI at the lens of how does it really impact an educator, we can really see how we can choose tools that can help teachers with, lightening the extensive workload of K-12 teachers, lesson planning, these things have been mentioned, grading, administrative tasks, really helping with AI and lesson planning, automated grading, and certainly looking at automated grading that provides feedback that is transparent in how the grading is occurring and that it's fair and equal access for students. I love this one, how AI can help us really personalize learning in the classroom. And that is something that we really focus on a good deal in the K-12 classroom. And then of course, administration efficiency. And so as we really look at how AI kind of infuses into the classroom, we can think about AI and its impact not only on how it maximizes an educator's time, and then how that translates into the teaching and learning and planning process. And Lavita's going to begin talking now and really sharing about from a student perspective how using AI as an instructional tool can really design maximum opportunities for impact in that learning process for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Aldridge. So as we continue to look at it, and as I've been traveling around the state and been able to really talk to educators, we're starting to see that they are utilizing AI to, and some of these have been mentioned before, to not only assist them with personalized learning, but to help them with differentiation in schools. As they're able to differentiate with their lessons, they're able to actually utilize AI to quickly analyze some of that student data and be able to provide some feedback to their students. One thing that I think is really, really great is that they're able to also increase their students' persistence. So in my work, I do a lot with gamification. Students are able to use this AI to not only provide immediate feedback, but give them motivation to stay engaged with the content that is being presented to them. We also hear a lot about accessibility. So this is allowing our teachers to be able to create more inclusive environments for their students using features such as text-to-speech or speech-to-text, as well as our EL learners, and being able to utilize the language translations that are available for them and able to really allow them to provide that personalized learning experience for them. As we look at some districts that have been utilizing AI in their classroom, I just want to highlight that this is going around multiple content areas. So my area of focus is computer science, but I'm starting to see in music education, for example, we have a teacher out of White County that has been able to utilize AI in their digital audio workspace. And this is allowing their students to create music collaboratively. When we look at Union County, the social studies teachers are able to use time lapse and Google Earth to allow their students to explore historical locations and changes over time and in a very immersive way. When we were talking earlier, or it was mentioned earlier about some guidelines that are created, we also wanted to highlight some of our Georgia districts and individual schools who already have AI guidelines put in place. And that's going to be Gainesville City, Mary Parsons High School, Gwinnett County, Richmond County, as well as Camden County. They're currently working on their AI guidelines. So these guidelines are put in place. So we know that this is moving forward in the state, and it's great to see that a lot of districts are engaging in artificial intelligence in order to kind of create an enhanced learning experience for their students. I wanted to share one more example, and this is a teacher out of West Georgia. This is a 9th grade English teacher. She is utilizing AI in an artistic way in order to have her students create exemplar prompts, or we like to say prompt engineering, to create dynamic visualizations in order for them to be able to illustrate their stories, and they're utilizing that for projects. As I move into some of the projects that we have been working on for the past 3 years, so we know that AI is not new. For the past 3 years, we have been working with AI for Georgia with the Living and Working with AI curriculum, where we have been working with various middle schools around the state. This is a multi-state collaborative project. And so with this, we want to ensure that while we know students are using AI, we want them to understand AI literacy and properly how to use AI and what does AI actually look like under the hood. And so we have been able to partner with various districts around the state, and we have been implementing in some of this AI literacy piece. So students are not only learning about autonomous vehicles or how computers make decisions, but they're really understanding what does that artificial intelligence, what is the definition of that? What does it represent? How can I use that in my everyday life? When I'm looking and thinking about the ethical implications, what does that look like? And so we have been excited that this has been a growing topic of discussion, and we see that more school districts are interested in participating. When we look at our teacher professional development, over the past couple of years, we have been going out around the state working with school districts with AI education as well as AI literacy. And we've been able to provide at least 160 hours of summer professional development through various conferences. We host a computer science conference every summer, as well as bringing in an AI guild and working with teachers to kind of teach them the literacy piece of artificial intelligence. We've also been able to provide implementation support through RESAs that have asked for presentations, as well as working with various teachers to kind of help co-design some curriculum that will assist teachers as they're moving forward and wanting to implement artificial intelligence into their classroom.
So we know that one of the third bullet that we started with was really thinking about that workforce development as well. And you can see from this slide that certainly jobs of the future are going to look a little different than maybe some of the jobs in the last 50 years. And certainly these jobs are going to require advanced level of mathematical reasoning and application, data analysis, statistical reasoning and comprehension. And these are just some reasons why we have to be very intentional on how we develop AI and how we provide access to AI. So as we prepare for students in the AI workforce, Lavita will go on to the next slide there. You can just see that there are really some key points to really developing these AI agents. And I'm going to let Lavita share a little bit more specifically about some of the CTAE pathway courses that are already in place that our students are engaged in as we continue to develop that awareness and engagement with developing students who will be ready for an AI workforce.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, our CTAE and curriculum and instruction team, we collaborated with Gwinnett County School System to develop a CTAE AI pathway. This pathway is 3 courses that students can take to really build their awareness of not only what is artificial intelligence, but how they can actually develop AI agents to be ready for the AI workforce. We are seeing that since these standards have been approved, more school districts, as you can see with the data, has started to want to offer this AI pathway in their school system. So as of last year, we did have 275 students in the state that took part in the artificial intelligence pathway. And we know that this school year, that number is only going to increase with the increased demand with learning about artificial intelligence. As we look at some resources that we have available from the State Department, we have created 3 professional learning courses that are available to all educators through their school district. These are the Living and Working with AI series. This is on autonomous robots, vehicle, how computers understand language, as well as how computers make decisions. We also talk about what does this look like inside your classroom if you want to engage and have your students learn a little bit more about artificial intelligence. We also have the Pathways to Possibilities, and this is really catered more to our secondary students, our 6th through 12th grade students. And this allows them to actually look at in detail, it's a video from a teacher that is currently teaching the AI pathway. They go and break down what does that pathway, what do those classes look like? What are you actually learning inside of those classes? And if you're taking an end of pathway assessment, what does that assessment look like? As well as we have some industry professionals who dedicated some of their time to create a career video based around what does a career look like in artificial intelligence? What are some of those common threads? We can have cloud computing. How does all of that tie together in order for us to continue a career in AI? And then lastly, we focus around Let's Learn Georgia, where we created a video for middle school teachers that talk about the big 5 ideas of artificial intelligence. And locally, we also have our Godot Inspire Hub. And so this provides curriculum resources to all teachers in various content areas. And the great thing about it is it has the capability to add AI to support that educator as they're trying to enhance their learning experience.
So we hope we've given you a little overview of what we're doing currently to support AI and developing both AI literacy, thinking about how we can use AI to support teaching and learning in the classrooms, and certainly our goals of ensuring that we're creating students who are workforce ready. And we'll just leave you with some key points. And I would say these are opportunities and challenges at the same time, right? As we move forward in really elevating the use of AI, and that's just demystifying the use, right? Like making sure that you have the group of teachers that are ready to jump fully on board. And then you have groups of teachers who are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. Maybe there's fear, maybe they don't know, exactly how to use or select tools. And that's where it's really important that we're able to really provide high quality professional learning and support for districts, both with how to select tools, how to utilize tools, how to maximize their use so that they are impacting not just the teaching process, but the learning outcomes for students. And then, of course, ensuring accessibility for all of our educators and students, regardless of their zip code. And then finally, just another reminder that, our ultimate goal is our student success. And how are we using AI to ensure that we're developing students who have the skills that will be needed for future careers? And so we just appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all today and to really make the connections between AI that is here, it's been here, it's driving behind the scenes, but now it's becoming more prevalent into our classrooms and really equipping our teachers and students, again, to just utilize AI to maximize the learning and the workforce preparedness. And we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Well, April Levita, that was, again, another terrific presentation. You definitely hit a lot of the high points that I think we were interested in learning about. I do have just a couple of questions. I first off, I just say I always think technology is the great equalizer for all our students, no matter where they are, urban, rural, suburban, or socioeconomic status. And I think this is going to be another way for us to help propel student achievement forward. And I really particularly was looking at your item about personalized learning, because as we know, every person, child especially, learns a little differently. And I guess my question is how do we get that personalized learning all the way down to our, our classroom level, knowing the Department of Education can only do so many things at any one given time. And we rely on our local 181 school systems and their school boards and their superintendents and faculty. So help me understand how we can personalize learning. How can we get that quicker?
So I'll go ahead and speak to that a little bit. The department has been engaged in a grant over the last 3 to 4 years that's really been focused on personalized learning. So we have several school districts across our state that have really been piloting and developing a large body of work around that. And one of the things that we are very intentional about in the Division of Teaching and Learning, and certainly through curriculum and instruction, regardless of the content area, is we are consistently and constantly weaving in the aspects of personalized learning into all professional learning. So if we're out delivering professional learning on math, there are components of personalized learning in that. And I would say also our partner educational groups like Gale and GASIS and places like that, personalized learning is a topic. It goes hand in hand with what AI can support in the classroom. So again, making sure that we're providing quality professional learning regardless of the zip code to all teachers. That is how we build our teachers and their capacity to do the great professional work that they execute in their classrooms every day.
Thank you, April. And I'm going to follow up on that with one more question. Obviously, we've got teachers who are brand new. We've got teachers that have been teaching for decades. When we think about the newer teachers who are going through school right now, earning their degrees, getting their teaching certificates, are we working now to integrate that as a part of what they need to know before they come out to become a teacher?
Well, I'd say, and Lavita, you can add to this as well. I would say, there's two different types of educators right now, and then a whole lot in between. And a lot of those teachers that are in teacher preparation programs right now, they move and live and utilize technology in a different way, perhaps, than a teacher who has been in the classroom before technology was as prevalent as today. Take me, for example. When I started college, email hit the world at Mercer University. And I remember that you had to go to one computer and use email, right? Students who are in teacher prep programs now, they've never been in a world that doesn't have email. They've not really lived in a world that doesn't have components of AI that have been working behind the scenes. So I think that, again, when we talk about personalized learning for students, we also talk about personalized learning for our educators. And so it may look different in our institutions of higher ed, where teachers are getting traditional preparation. It will look different in our TAP cohorts that are led by RESAs and other institutional, where you have non-traditional students coming back for certification. Maybe it's a second career or an alternate career. And then certainly you have our teachers that are already in the existing classrooms. So there's lots of levels of professional learning and things to consider as we really mobilize and utilize AI to increase the effectiveness of instruction in the classroom.
Oh, that's great. I see a hand up for Chairman Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman Albers. Yeah, it's a funny story about the email. When I was in the Navy, we actually had to write our email onto a Word doc and load it on a 3.5-inch floppy and drop it off at the post office, and they would send it out and then print us a response and put it on a rack, which is so yeah, I remember those days at the beginning email. But my question really has to do about what AI literacy, and I think about reading, writing, arithmetic, right? I mean, there's certain bars that you should, as you progress through the educational system, that you should be hitting, right? Is there any inkling of really a curriculum that builds off like reading, writing, arithmetic, technology, right? Maybe that's like the new subject. Instead of just kind of how do we sprinkle it in what we're already doing, but really kind of pushing that. So that way, maybe through, third grade, it's just understanding, using it to help you get through, I don't know, reading or whatever, but really understanding how to use that technology, but then building off of that. That's my first question, is if y'all looked at that at all. That's kind of like the new subject, right? And then the other part is I really like to know, what is the interface between you and at the collegiate level? Define what is AI literate as a high school graduate? And what does the university system expect of you? And are you having those conversations to make sure, our students are ready for that, pushing it to the next level?
Well, let's start with the first question. Levita, I'm going to let you do a little bit deeper dive into the aspect of standards that's driving AI literacy, K through 12, and then we'll finish up talking a little bit about the partnership with our institutes of higher ed.
Yeah, so we have standards that I showed you for the AI pathway. And so that focuses on students between 9th and 12th grade. Currently, there are no standards for our elementary or middle school students, but we are working through piloting various different programs around the state in hopes that we will be able to create standards that will create more AI literacy pieces for those middle school students, as well as our elementary school students. Because right now, like you said, we do have teachers who are embedding it. But again, we want our students to be able to understand not just what they're doing, but not being consumers, but being creators and understanding how artificial intelligence actually works. So we are hoping to move forward with that in the future.
Thanks, Levita.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And just really quickly, with our institutions of higher education, Levita herself works with, various institutions, as do all of our content areas across the department. So we have informal conversations and working groups. And so the AI literacy conversation, I'll piggyback on our previous speaker. The AI conversations kind of go back and forth between being creators and innovators with AI and how it directly impacts just the instructional part, but also all of the data and security and privacy issues that you have to balance. So those are conversations that go back and forth. And so where you sometimes can move very quickly when you're talking about instruction and how it can engage students, you have to balance that with the limitations and the security issues. So we work very closely too with our technology division, as do our local education agencies. Our previous speaker really talked a lot about having to vet applications and software programs, and those are protocols that are very important. So those conversations, while they go on informally and within the context of all of our content areas, I do anticipate that they will become more formalized as we move, more fully into how AI is going to impact K-12. I know both Levita and I are also engaged with national groups where we meet with other states and we're learning about and talking about and discussing these same type of issues, so that again we can learn from what other states are doing, bring that back. We can share what we're actually focusing in on Georgia, but I do anticipate those to become more formal as we move more into how AI will impact K-12 instruction.
But if you don't mind, Chairman Albers, I'll take a follow up on this. I guess to me, when I got a college prep degree, right? Well, there's a certain set of criteria that I've always understood was what the university system would accept for the minimum, education required out of a high school to be successful in the university system. Well, my question is now with this, I mean, we're dealing with AI 2 years out, but these kids that are in the school system right now, they're operating. I mean, they'll be functioning 20 years out from now. So the more that we could do to incorporate this early to help the university system, I mean, I think it's going to be beneficial to all of us. So again, I just, maybe we can have some follow-up conversations. We don't have to do it today, but I would be really interested to see what we're doing to set certain bars for or thresholds for our children graduating from high school to make sure that they have at least a baseline education. And even if it's not necessarily, college prep, the old tech prep degree, right? And I'm a little disconnected from the school system. I graduated in the 90s, but even those kids, they still are going to utilize the technology. I mean, shoot, you can right now use AI to help you write code. And maybe, you know, they don't need a full 4-year degree specifically for that part. But I think it's an asset to try and look into some curriculum. So, you know, I'll kind of get off on that or end on that. But thank you.
Sounds like a good recommendation, Chairman Thomas. I know we'll be taking some good notes today. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you again, Lavita and April, for your great presentation. I don't see their hands up at this point. We are going to now shift in our committee meeting today. We started with K through 12 education. Now we're going to shift over to the international world to see what's happening there from a business and government and privacy perspective. And we're excited to have one of our very own committee members, Fred Miscawi, who's going to indulge us with his presentation. He was kind enough to speak to us last year when we held some joint committee meetings with both the Science and Technology and Public Safety Committee in the Senate. And we're excited to hear your presentation today. I'll turn it over to you, Fred.
Thank you, Chairman Albers. So let me make sure I can share.
We got it.
Awesome. And I do have a written statement for you today. That way I don't get in trouble later. And you'll understand as I go through the EU AI Act. But good morning, everyone. Chairman Thomas, Chairman Albers, pleasure as always, members of the committee. AI is rapidly transforming how we operate, how enterprises operate, innovate, and the way that we engage with customers. So today's presentation will give you a comprehensive overview of how AI is being used globally, the risk associated with the deployment, and the opportunities that the technology brings. We're going to discuss the technical side of AI and the importance of governance, transparency, and responsible use. These principles that must guide companies like ours through serious and to get us to long-term success. So the goal today is to share an international perspective on how organizations are navigating these challenges and seizing on the potential of AI while remaining ethical and transparent in practices. My name is Fred Miscawi. I'm a vice president at CGI, and I'm part of our global AI enablement team, and I lead our AI innovation expert services globally. And in my role, I oversee the responsible implementation of AI tooling across our strategic business units and the regions, and cater to our vast network of AI innovators and experts. I'm also honored to serve on the committee. So today, I'm excited to share some insights from our global efforts to advance AI technology in ways that deliver value while upholding societal trust. And I'd like to put an emphasis on that word, trust and transparency, and addressing emerging risks. So before we start, though, I would like to thank our governor for our state's response to Hurricane Helene. And my thoughts and prayers and support go to the families impacted by this storm in the Southeast. So moving on to now the agenda. Our agenda today covers 4 critical areas: the risks involved and the responsible use of AI, a brief perspective on the evolving regulatory landscape, focusing on the EU AI Act. Now, Bianca is going to be talking about the EU AI Act, so I'm really just going to be touching on it and talk about what we're doing as a result of the EU AI Act. Enterprise AI solutions currently being deployed and the acceleration of software development through AI. Each section is designed to build upon the last, and that will enable me to share some of the experiences that we've built worldwide. I will provide a holistic view of how AI reshapes enterprises and what businesses must focus in order to thrive in this rapidly evolving landscape. So transparency, and in this case, transparency coming to you from 31 countries and 5 continents, which is our footprint at CGI with 90,000 employees. And with that presence, we have a unique opportunity to see how AI is deployed and governed across those various jurisdictions. This geographic diversity requires us to focus intensely on transparency, whether ensuring regulatory compliance in the European Union or addressing data privacy concerns in the United States. Transparency is a universal value that builds trust. And our commitment to visibility and accountability remains paramount. as we continue to scale our AI solutions globally. This international perspective is essential in understanding how AI impacts businesses, societies, and governance frameworks differently across the various regions. Before we move forward, and in the spirit of transparency, please note that humans created this deck. And this written statement, actually, I am delivering today, was created with the help of AI for grammar, flow, and brainstorming. Still, every concept, information, and idea comes from me and others at CGI. All right, risks. We talked a lot about risks today in K-12 education. AI offers immense potential, but also introduces significant risks that cannot be ignored. We see concerns arising in copyright law, as highlighted by recent lawsuits over AI-generated content. We also talked about that in previous committee meetings. Security vulnerabilities, data poisoning, and privacy infringements further compound these risks. In addition to the technical challenges that we face, we also face societal risks. AI can exacerbate inequalities, we covered some of that today as well, or perpetuate cultural biases. Without responsible governance, AI's ability to enhance democracy can be undermined, as seen in issues like deepfakes and automated misinformation. Each of these risks speak to the importance of developing robust guardrails around AI to maintain trust and accountability. Now, responsible use of AI is not only an ethical necessity, but it is an imperative for us. So responsible use of AI is not just an ethical choice, it's a necessity. Companies that embrace transparency and responsible AI practices are safeguarding their reputations and positioning themselves to gain competitive advantage. In today's market, trust is a key currency, and it's built by ensuring that AI systems benefit society as a whole. Compliance with fast-evolving regulations like the EU AI Act is essential. Moreover, businesses that prioritize ethical AI and the use of ethical AI will lead to innovation, gaining the trust of consumers, regulators, and investors alike. This balance between innovation and ethics will define the winners and the losers in the AI-driven economy. We're standing at the edge of a new era of innovation. For some of us, we're right in the middle of it already. AI enables businesses to solve complex problems faster and more efficiently than ever. However, without robust guardrails, this innovation can lead to unintended consequences. So privacy, security, intellectual areas that need clear frameworks. Focusing on responsible AI ensures that the systems that we deploy are trustworthy and ethical. As George Schindler, a CGI board member, has emphasized, the value of AI will only be realized when human expertise is combined with the ethical use of technology. This approach allows us to scale AI in beneficial ways for all our stakeholders. So to ensure trusted outcomes, responsible AI defines core principles that align with human values. These principles that you see here on the slide must then be operationalized into governance structures that ensure fairness, inclusiveness, and transparency. At CGI, we're building these principles into every phase of our AI lifecycle. So from design and development to deployment and monitoring of products and services. A key focus is explainability, ensuring that AI models are interpretable and transparent. It's a difficult task at times, but it's important to invest in that space. We also recognize the importance of rigorous testing, security, and privacy policies. Compliance with laws like the GDPR and the EU AI Act is not optional for us, especially since we operate in Europe, but it's also important for what we're doing here in the US and abroad. It's essential for maintaining trust with both regulators and with the public. Human in the loop, human on the loop, visibility and transparency are critical to AI deployments, but achieving this requires active human involvement. We emphasize keeping humans in the loop during those key decisions, and AI models should augment, not replace, human judgment, particularly in high-risk applications like healthcare and law enforcement. While autonomous AI systems are advancing, human oversight is necessary to ensure that AI decisions align with the ethical standards and societal values that we uphold. At CGI, we focus on human on the loop, and that's where oversight is constant, but not intrusive. This balance allows us to leverage AI's capabilities while controlling the outcomes. As this technology is getting more advanced, though, and growing exponentially, it's becoming more and more difficult to stay in the loop. To keep control, it is important to invest time and effort to establish and test control. Going on to the EU AI Pact. Again, since Bianca is going to be talking about it, I'll be brief. But by engaging early adopters and creating a network of organizations committed to responsible AI practices, the EU AI Pact aims to build a community that shares best practices and contributes to shaping the future of AI governance. We're proud to be part of that initiative, working with other leaders, over 700, to ensure AI systems are deployed transparently, ethically, and with compliance with European standards. We aim to set the stage for AI safe and secure integration into all the aspects of the digital economy. And a lot of what we're doing and learning from the EU AI Act is also transpiring in the work that we do globally, including here in Georgia. Again, briefly on the EU AI Act, it's a risk-based approach. It categorizes AI systems by risk, requiring different levels of scrutiny depending on the potential for harm. So high-risk systems, such as those used in law enforcement or access to public services, they require stringent oversight and compliance measures. The systems must pass conformity assessments to ensure they do not violate human rights or perpetuate inequalities. Now, in contrast, minimal risk AI systems have fewer regulatory burdens, but all AI systems in the Act must maintain transparency regardless of the risk level. The risk-based approach allows the EU AI Act to balance fostering innovation with protecting public interests. Now let's talk about risks. High-risk AI systems are pervasive across industries, from critical infrastructure to law enforcement and healthcare. These systems that you see here are often at the heart of essential services, making their ethical and responsible use even more crucial. The EU AI Act mandates that providers of these systems ensure compliance with strict guidelines, covering everything from fairness and transparency to privacy and security. The obligations placed on high-risk systems reflect their significant societal impact, underscoring that need for thorough oversight to prevent misuse or unintended harm. Now, the EU AI Pact, by joining the EU AI Pact, organizations like ours can take a proactive role in shaping AI governance. The Pact fosters collaboration between the private sector, regulators, and civil society, creating a space to exchange best practices and ensure compliance with the EU AI Act. At our company, we're committed to engaging with the European Commission and contributing to developing the first general-purpose AI code of practice. This engagement ensures that the AI systems we build comply with regulations and set the new standards for transparency and accountability. Now let's talk about enterprise AI solutions. AI is already making a significant impact on businesses around the world like ours and our customers, our clients. From automating routine tasks to enabling more sophisticated data analysis, enterprise AI solutions are driving efficiencies and opening up new revenue streams. Now, in the coming years, we expect that these AI solutions to become even more integral to how we operate, particularly as they evolve to handle more complex tasks. AI exists on a continuum, with traditional machine learning on one end of that spectrum and more advanced generative AI on the other. Traditional AI, such as decision trees or basic neural networks, or what we call narrow AI, has long been used in industries like finance and healthcare. Today, we're shifting towards more complex systems that can process vast amounts of unstructured data, can generate new content, and can even perform multimodal tasks, such as analyzing text and images. As we move further along this continuum, the potential for AI to transform industries increases, but so do the ethical and governance challenges. To ensure responsible deployment along this continuum, we must apply some of the items that we talked about today: responsible use of AI, human in the loop, human on the loop. Now let's talk about the various categories of solutions that we're seeing on the market today and where we're deploying worldwide. Enterprise AI solutions today can be grouped into 4 broad categories that you see here. First, systems that can read and understand information, such as document processing and computer vision applications used in manufacturing. Second, systems that can predict outcomes based on data. That includes recommendation engines and predictive analytics. Next, bottom left, AI systems are now being used to create and generate new content, from coding assistants to generative AI for media. And at the end, we have systems that take action, such as intelligent automation and AI agents. Each category represents a different way AI is being used to deliver value in the enterprise, and together they showcase the breadth of AI's capabilities. Now, what do companies building and deploying AI need to thrive? This is based on what we've seen worldwide and the various efforts that we've been taking on for the past several years. To successfully build and deploy AI at scale, companies need 6 critical elements. There are more than 6, but that's all I could fit in the slides. So we're going to cover those key 6 ones in matter of priority. First, talent and expertise. AI development requires a mix of generalists and specialists who can solve complex problems. Next, ethical and compliance guidance. Clear frameworks are essential to navigate the evolving regulatory landscape. Next, access to data, innovation, research. Although dependency on high-quality data sets has been reduced this past year, it will continue to be a driving factor in successful AI solutions, and combined with research and innovative talent, does become a competitive driving force. Next, adequate funding. AI solutions, particularly those deployed on-premise, can be expensive. Next, energy and computing power. AI is energy and computationally intensive, at least today. Until new algorithms are invented, we will consume vast amounts of energy for training and production of these models. Next, and finally, leadership and vision. Transforming an enterprise with AI requires forward-thinking leadership. And finally, partnerships. Collaborating with technology providers and partners like us, regulatory bodies, or other enterprises is key to successful AI deployment. Now, AI's biggest impact, and Chairman Thomas put a finger on it or hinted on it earlier. One of AI's most significant impacts is its ability to accelerate the deployment of digital value. Now, nowhere is this more evident than in software development, where AI enables companies like ours to develop and deliver products faster than ever before. This acceleration has a cascading effect on the entire digital economy. It's enabling more rapid innovation, faster time to markets, and increased competitiveness. Now, as AI continues to evolve, we expect its impact on the digital economy to grow exponentially, fundamentally reshaping industries and even the job market. AI is impacting software development the fastest, and a little bit of early results here, but that's where AI's impact is felt the most acutely right now. AI-powered tools drive strong productivity gains, allowing developers to create and deploy software faster with better quality. We're already seeing the productivity increases of minimum of 15 to 25% in this year, and that's expected to double by 2025 as tool continues to improve, and they improve every week. So automation of software development turning into de facto low-code and no-code platforms is increasing, further democratizing software development, enabling a broader range of users to participate in digital transformation efforts. The acceleration of software development will have far-reaching effects, not just on the tech industry, but on all sectors of the economy. All right, so to summarize the key points we've covered today, first, transparency, critical to mitigate AI risks and build stakeholder trust. As AI introduces new security, legal, and ethical risks, trust must be at the forefront of any AI deployment. Next, responsible use of AI. It requires robust governance frameworks and therefore investments in companies, such as those as well from a regulatory landscape of the EU AI Act. The human on the loop approach is essential to ensure AI safe and ethical use. Next, we're seeing enterprise AI solutions move from traditional models to more advanced action-based systems. And finally, AI's role in accelerating software development will have a cascading effect across the economy, driving faster innovation, increased automation, and even societal changes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for exploring ways to make our state a key destination for safe and secure augmented intelligence.
Fred, as always, your wisdom and expertise is unmatched when you're talking about how this is going across the globe. You mentioned so many great things in here. I really like the risk-based approach. And when you were talking about specifically the EU AI Pact and how that's working there, I'm wondering, is that something we should be looking at in the United States of having the state's AI Pact, if you will, in order to make sure we don't have 50 different solutions that are very difficult for both businesses and individuals alike to navigate?
Absolutely, Chairman. I think there's a lot that we can learn from the EU AI Pact, their approach. And the idea, like I was mentioning, is to build a community. And together, we provide feedback to the European Union saying, we don't think this is going to work. We think this will work. And I think that's an important aspect of the process. It's an iterative process that is listening, and listening not just to the broad community, but also to industry, people like us.
Excellent. I see Chairman Thomas with his hand up.
Yeah, just one quick question. You hit on one of my biggest concerns. I'm also on energy and utilities, and that is the power consumption that these data centers are going to require. I've tried to run an LLM on my local machine, and I'm going to tell you, it's kind of painful to try and watch my computer do it. So it has to be run out of a server to really do it in probably a reasonable timeline. And with that being the case, is there any idea? I mean, have you all looked at what the expectation is for additional demand on our grid from this? And I know there's a lot of variables to answer that question, but I'd be interested to know. I just keep hearing there's going to be more. Well, we're throwing electric vehicles on there already, right? So now we're doing this, and how do you think what do we need to do as a state to keep up on the electrical and power demands that all these systems are going to put on our grid?
I'm not qualified to answer that question, but what I can say, Chairman, is what we're looking at in terms of energy consumption, we've talked to investors as well in that space who are focusing solely on the energy sector. And what we're seeing and hearing really depends on a couple key elements that may change over the next several months. Number one, it's the algorithms. So as we're looking at the past 2 years, the efficiency of these algorithms have actually improved, and sometimes 50x. So building a map or a potential need in terms of energy is a little complicated. But what we do know is that the partners that we have, like Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, and others, they are investing heavily in the power grid. Microsoft with a deal with nuclear power plant, right?
Yeah, so, that's why I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, we need to, that definitely something that needs to be explored. Why? Because we can really run out of steam very quickly if our citizens, our employees, our students in the state of Georgia don't have access to the compute and power that they need.
Well, and for me, the other concern is, classic economics 101, supply and demand. And if supply is somewhat constrained and demand goes up, then now how does that wind up affecting our constituents and the power bills that they're paying because of the offset? So, just things to keep in mind. Thank you.
Very, very good and timely discussion as we worked on that a bit. And I think we mentioned in previous meetings, it's my belief that, in the time between now and having quantum computing and fusion power will be that gap that we'll have to figure out how to get there. And maybe that's part of our task here. Other questions for Fred before we move on? I don't see their hands up. All right, Fred, thank you again, as always, for your excellent presentation. And you all know you can get a hold of Fred anytime because he's in all our committee meetings. Bianca, next, I'm excited again from the Future of Privacy Forum, the great work we get to do together with other states. And to some degree, I mentioned a minute ago about the EU AI Pact. We are collaborating, which is good. We may not take that to the next level. Could be a recommendation as I look at Haley Williams' name on the screen, who I know is documenting our future suggestions and ideas. So Bianca, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Just making sure that you can hear me, and I will
Sure can.
also share my slides.
Perfect.
All right, great. So I think you can hear me, you can see the slides. So we're good. Dear senators,
Yes.
dear House members, fellow presenters, thank you very much for the invitation to join you today for this meeting of the Study Committee on AI. I've learned so much already from all of you today and hope that this final part will be useful as well. My name is Bianca. I'm Deputy Director for Global Privacy at the Future of Privacy Forum. And I will talk to you today from Brussels a little bit about some of the most significant developments in the global AI regulatory landscape. So I will start with an overview of the emerging AI regulatory models that we're seeing around the world, and a look also at the developments and updates at the supranational level. I will then dive a little bit into the EU AI Act, some of its key principles, how it relates to the EU data protection law, the GDPR, and a little bit about the next steps there. We will then look at the US regulatory landscape on AI, as we've seen many developments here too, and end with some insights on global perspectives on AI regulation. So look a little bit at what is emerging from the Asia Pacific region, from Latin America, and from Africa. So what we're seeing internationally are really quite different approaches to regulating AI. We're seeing hard law, most notably with the EU AI Act that just entered into force in August of this year. But we also see the Colorado AI Act. We see countries such as Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Nigeria, and South Korea currently introducing hard law through their own AI bills. And some countries such as China and Kenya that are really signaling that they are heading down that path as well. We're seeing executive action, most notably with the US President Biden's executive order on AI with applicability to the federal government. Here we also have Australia's AI safety guidelines, which are voluntary, and China's set of measures and recommendations on AI. What I'd say is also significant to note here is that AI governance frameworks are also influencing the regulatory landscape and playing really an important role in translating policies into actionable steps for organizations across the board. There are also many voluntary AI ethics frameworks that are emerging from national and regional bodies, but also from international organizations. And this is where the supranational level is really increasingly important in driving the AI regulatory conversation. So we're seeing international organizations that are indeed emerging as leaders in establishing fora for international cooperation on AI. And their position is in really trying to advocate for interoperability of AI frameworks so that we can perhaps move towards a more globally coherent regulatory landscape. Here there is the Council of Europe's Framework Convention on AI, Human Rights, Democracy and the Rule of Law, which is the first treaty of its kind, really, that opened for signature on 5th of September this year, with the European Union and the United States already among its first signatories. We do have a blog on the FPF website really diving into this convention and its impact and what it means, just in case you are interested in finding out more. And there are also myriad initiatives in the context of the United Nations, UNESCO, the AI Safety Summit, the OECD. So for example, the UN and the OECD just announced that they will work much more closely to support governments with the AI policy response going forward. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations is issuing guidance on AI, and significantly also the African Union, which just released its continental AI strategy that will really set the tone for African countries that are now beginning to adopt their own national laws on AI. So to dive a little bit into one of the most widely discussed regional hard laws on AI, we have the EU AI Act. As a regulatory approach, it's a law that's modeled on EU product safety legislation, but that introduces a significant risk-based element, which we've already heard a little bit about. Its two primary aims are really to provide a single framework for AI products and services that are planned to enter the EU market, even where providers of these products and services are not based in the Union. So there is an element of extraterritorial effect there. And also to ensure that AI systems are indeed safe and trustworthy. So this duality can then be seen really everywhere throughout the text of the AI Act. And as the EU now moves towards implementation and enforcement, we'll have to see how this delicate balance plays out. In terms of scope, it introduces a number of actors that fall within the ambit of the law, and these are the AI providers, deployers, importers, distributors, and manufacturers of AI systems. This is some of the taxonomy that organizations are really grappling with right now in order to then determine which obligations are applicable to them. So this is the pyramid, also that was presented a little bit earlier, but in a different format, that really shows how this tiered risk-based approach looks like in practice in the AI Act. This is quite good for visualizing risk, and how this risk is quantified is essentially in relation to assessing the level of risk posed to a person's health, safety, and fundamental rights. And I take just an extra moment on this because we see variations of this risk-based model really making its way into AI regulations very much beyond the EU. So at the very top, we have unacceptable risks, and the systems that pose this type of risk will be prohibited. For example, real-time biometric identification in public spaces, AI systems that deploy subliminal and deceptive techniques, and so on. So these are the rules that will actually become effective first in February 2025. So regulators are currently working on providing some further guidance on these requirements. We then have high-risk AI systems. This is probably the most, let's say, widespread risk category. It includes AI-powered critical infrastructure, employment, education, and so on, and is the risk category that also comes, excuse me, with significant obligations. Quite notably here, citizens will also have the right to file complaints with designated authorities in their country. So among the obligations for high-risk AI systems providers are the conformity assessment and the fundamental rights impact assessment. The first requires high-risk AI systems providers to identify and mitigate risk, to comply with transparency obligations, human oversight requirements, and rules around the quality of data. If they essentially fulfill this assessment, they will receive a mark of conformity. And this is where we see precisely the EU product safety approach playing out for AI systems. The fundamental rights impact assessment only applies to deployers of high-risk AI that are governed by public law or to private entities providing public services. So it's a little bit more restricted in its scope. It remains to be seen here what role providers of AI systems have to play in kind of supporting the deployers with conducting these assessments. It is a complex landscape of different actors where really symbiosis will be needed because indeed the wider supply chain of AI systems has to be considered here. The EU AI Act also has something to say about general purpose AI models, such as ChatGPT and generative AI models. So all providers will have to comply with technical documentation regarding their model, will have to comply with copyright rules. We see then additional obligations for providers of GPI models that pose systemic risk. And here we see, again, this notion of risk playing quite a central role in the EU's regulatory approach on AI. Of course, currently, there are many conversations around the EU AI Act and the GDPR. And privacy authorities around the world really are grappling with this interplay between privacy and AI in their own countries and regions. In the EU, at least from the legislator's perspective, the two laws are supposed to work in harmony, and the AI Act should be without prejudice to the GDPR. We have identified in our analyses some conflict between the two, but here we will have to see a little bit how courts and national and European authorities really enforce the rules in due course, and also the type of guidance that they release around compliance and around how to address privacy risks in AI systems. One thing that has emerged quite clearly is that data protection authorities have really emerged as kind of regulators of AI in the absence of the AI Act so far. So the Italian Data Protection Authority has taken action against OpenAI's ChatGPT on the basis of the GDPR. And it is likely that we can expect this kind of action to continue. So leaving it here with the EU AI Act and moving on to some significant US developments in AI regulation and bills. So already adopted are the Colorado AI Act, where we see a focus on regulating high-risk AI systems. We have Utah's AI Policy Act, which creates disclosure requirements for entities providing consumer-facing generative AI systems, as well as a regulatory sandbox regime, which is quite interesting for AI testing and research. And California's SB 942, which again focuses on generative AI providers. So we see a mix of regulatory approaches emerging from the different states. You know, one that zooms in on the risk-based approach, one which focuses on the different technologies, and so on. There are also proposed bills, currently all of them in California, at least in this table, and they address different elements from cybersecurity to privacy risk assessment and frontier AI systems. So zooming in a little more, we generally see that most state-level initiatives focus on government AI use and deepfakes and political communication, and that high-risk AI regulations are indeed gaining more steam. Diving precisely into this topic is an FPF report covering US state AI legislation and really extracting some of the key insights that we are finding there. So generally, we're seeing that state lawmakers are primarily focused on regulating AI that is used in consequential decisions and that affect people's lives in real ways. And there is a focus that we're seeing on addressing and mitigating algorithmic discrimination. We also see that most AI legislative frameworks create role-specific obligations. So similarly to what we talked about with regard to the different actors in the EU AI Act. So similarly, at the state level in the US, legislators are looking at those that are developing AI systems and those that are deploying the systems and kind of assigning different rules to them. So this has really emerged as an interesting regulatory model. And there is also a regulatory approach emerging at the state level where some lawmakers are taking a technology-specific approach and addressing the technologies themselves. So finally, just zooming out again a little and looking at what is happening in other parts of the world when it comes to AI regulation. This is important because there are currently huge international, intergovernmental debates on how AI should be regulated, what should be the primary principles, values, and so on. So for example, in the Asia Pacific region, we're seeing that AI has been a central focus for regulators who have in part really focused their approach on driving innovation and investment in the region. India, for example, has so far relied on advisory voluntary guidance for AI systems. Indonesia, which just very recently adopted its own data protection law, has released voluntary guidance on AI. Malaysia currently has voluntary guidelines under development. So you can see here that soft law and voluntary initiatives have been the focus in Asia Pacific so far. Then we have countries such as Singapore that are really emerging as drivers of AI policy in the region, often through the country's Data Protection Authority, which has been very active in issuing guidance on the matter of AI and, for example, its interplay with privacy. When we look towards Latin America, we can definitely see the influence of the EU AI Act and its risk-based approach in some of the current proposals for AI regulation in the different countries, for example, in Brazil. But this is not to say that they are, copy-paste of the EU AI Act. And indeed, a deeper analysis shows that, for example, the current draft Brazil AI bill does have some notable differences. Nevertheless, in the region, there is interest in kind of in alignment and in global cooperation and interoperability, and here in kind of adopting harmonized rules for regulating AI systems. And finally, moving on to Africa, the African Union just a couple of months ago adopted its continental AI strategy. The focus of this strategy is really to link the development of AI to Africa's own sustainable development. So the focus is on building the skills, building the infrastructure that are really necessary for a flourishing AI landscape in the continent, but also to ensure that the policy and regulatory environment is conducive to such development in a way that benefits African people. And we're seeing Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa that are currently developing their own AI laws, in which we'll likely see some of these principles from the continental AI strategy making their way into domestic legislation. And really, a final slide, do you see some of our work on AI legislation globally? I think you also have this in the slide deck with hyperlinks, so really accessible. And thank you so much for your attention. I'd love to see if you have any questions or comments that I can try to address today.
Well, we just another fantastic presentation, very, very comprehensive. Thank you, Bianca, for that. One of my questions, and you're helping greatly, as is the rest of the Future Privacy Forum, with the multi-state approach we're trying to do, is my fear again is patchwork. And if the patchwork in the U.S., our federal government is very slow and sometimes unable to react to something that would ideally provide us a single solution that all 50 states here would adhere to. And as you mentioned in one of your slides about Colorado, Utah, California, of course, Governor Newsom did just veto one bill in California that did usually go too far. And we have that challenge in the states of usually have a handful of states that go in the wrong direction and then have to clean it up, and we have to come up with whatever that solution is. So I guess my question for you is, I'm impressed the EU was able to pull that together and get so many people to buy into that. What type of wisdom and advice do you have? And do you think in lieu of us having a federal version of that bill, there's a good path forward for us to get the states to do some type of a consortium?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. I think it's really difficult. I think one of the things that the EU has done with the AI Act is this really kind of multi-stakeholder approach, trying to bring everybody around the table. For example, with the drafting of the code of practice for general purpose AI models, there was just a kind of open call for applications for interested parties to apply to become part of this group, which was really excellent. And I saw, many colleagues from all different backgrounds really joining in this effort. And they will actively play a role in kind of drafting the bloc's rules on general purpose AI models. So there's academia there's industry, there's civil society, there are, think tanks, regulators, policymakers. So bringing everybody around the table. And I think that, this sounds excellent, but I do think that in practice there are challenges, absolutely, differing perspectives. And I think that process can be really time consuming. So having kind of the patience and the openness to go through it, I think is very admirable.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I've got a question from Fred.
Hi, Bianca. You mentioned the role-based approach in the EU AI Act, and I found that actually quite brilliant because it's providing better clarity for companies like ours to know what's applicable and what's not in the EU AI Act, because it's a very large document. Have you seen that kind of approach, role-based approach, in other regulatory landscapes or frameworks around the world?
Not currently, not as much as, for example, the risk-based approach, which has really kind of taken the world by storm, let's say. But I do see that a lot of stakeholders here in Brussels are right now really looking at, am I a developer? Am I a deployer? Where exactly do I fall within this different framework? And then going from there and seeing, okay, what rules apply to me? But actually, as really thinking about it, I'm not aware of any significant other frameworks or initiatives that are really taking this role-based approach. But I will be similarly keeping an eye out because I think it sounds very practical.
Thank you, Bianca. And Chairman, when we look at the role-based approach in the EU AI Act, as we're going through the document, it clearly outlines whether or not it applies to our company. That level of guidance has been critical for us to absorb the content of the EU AI Act. I found it quite brilliant.
Yeah, that's terrific, Fred. Thank you for pointing out that role-based approach is certainly unique and something we should look at modeling. Other questions before we wrap up? All right. Thank you again, Bianca, for everything that you provided today. And as we said with other presenters, we will, you all have a copy of this presentation already. It was sent via email from Will Spencer, and we will make sure contact information is available as well. But before we wrap up, I want to turn it over to Chairman Thomas to see if he has any parting thoughts of wisdom, and then we'll go through some logistics.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, like I said before, right now what we're looking at is trying to make sure we're setting up the state of Georgia for the future, and education is a big one. So I'm really glad that we hit on that today. The risk-based regulation framework is definitely something that we've been looking at, because I have no interest in trying to even push legislation or any type of regulation on somebody creating generative AI picture of a coffee cup. You know, it just doesn't seem. However, when we start getting into issues like, medical exams, I mean, AI is transformative in the fact that through deep learning, it really is better. I think even if many times achieves superhuman's ability to identify certain issues. But me as somebody that's actually being conducted, having the exams conducted on me, I'd like to know that an AI is being used, and I think I should have that right. So, just kind of some basic transparency requirements, which sounds like a lot of what Utah has kind of picked up, is really, I think, the right way to put some, put some guardrails up without stifling innovation, which is always what we talk about, Mr. Chairman. So thank you, and thank you for putting this together today. And Will, thank you for all your hard work wherever you are. And look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. I guess we're going to a farm, right?
We are going to go to a farm, yes. And that is going to be on October the 23rd at Iron Horse Farm. Will has sent this out to you in email, but we need a definite head count for the committee members. If you would please take some time today to respond to that for both the Senate and the House, that would be greatly appreciated. Again, that's going to be a great opportunity for us, and I think it's going to be eye-opening of some of the amazing stuff that's being done in agriculture. We are going to pause for a moment, though. We've got Haley Williams, who leads our Office of Policy and Legislative Analysis here in the Senate, and she is capturing the information so we don't get to December and start thinking about the things we talked about and not having our ducks in a row as far as some of our recommendations. I think we've given her some today, but if there is anybody right now who wants to make sure Haley is capturing something that they heard today that we don't already have down, please speak now.
And I will say for the record that the main thing that we've talked about today as far as a new recommendation is the PACT. So anything else?
Yeah, I think the PACT, I think whatever we do, including role-based scenarios, as I think that Bianca and then Fred highlighted afterwards, I think is critical. I think with the great work we heard from all the folks in K-12 education, I think we have to think about how we're going to continue to get that down to new and existing teachers. in classrooms, and how we candidly will teach differently over time. As exciting as that could be, and of course, always be concerned about privacy.
Mhm. Hey, I've got a suggestion. Do we have any AI experts from Georgia Tech on the committee by any chance?
Well, I see Professor Pascal right there.
Hey, Haley, you ought to get with Professor Pascal and see if he can create you an agent that'll just take all the audio from this and create a file for it, and then run it through an LLM. Make your life easy.
That
we
could
may
be
be having that happen.
breakthrough.
I know.
We can do document summaries for you if you want to.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if we're an AI committee, why don't we just try and utilize it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
But
do you notice how I delegated that to somebody else?
Well, I got to tell you, Representative, as a lawyer, that makes me a little worried, but open to at the direction of the chairs.
We'll keep you in the loop. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Will Spencer to send another email out to everybody. He'll blind carbon copy all the members so we don't start a large reply to all, but also copy Haley on that. And with the specific title is going to be any other specific recommendations and feedback that you may think over the next couple of days, just to keep, again, the momentum going. Is there anybody else that has something specific they want to mention right now, though? All right, I'm seeing none. I want to thank the working group of people. That's everyone behind the scenes. Obviously, we're just talking about Haley and Will Spencer. We've got folks from our Senate press office who helped set this all up today, legislative council, budget, all the folks that really help bring all these things together. A reminder again, after this next meeting, which will focus on agriculture and workforce, then we'll be doing healthcare and public safety. I think we're going to have a really good meeting there. As always, if you have someone that you think would be very important to speak to us, please let us know. We've already got some of those roles filled. In fact, Robin's going to be one of our upcoming speakers as well. We're excited to hear from her on workforce. But if you have something there, please reach out to me directly and Chairman Thomas so we can make sure we're capturing that appropriately. With that in mind, thank you everyone for your time today. I know we went a little bit over, but the content was certainly worth the extra time. And we will call this meeting, combined meeting, hereby adjourned. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.